Awesome. All right, everyone, we're going to go live. All right, everyone, we're going to go live. Yeah. We are live. Got it.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jennifer Fitzgerald, Mayor of the City of Fullerton, and I'm really glad to be with the businesses of our community this morning to talk about the steps that the city is taking and that business organizations are taking to support and assist our business community during this time. I want to preface this time together by saying that the city of Fullerton, any city in California, does not have the authority to reopen business. And the governor is the one who is making that call at the state level. He has not changed the current stay-at-home order. So our purpose here today is to make sure that all of us understand how to prepare so that as the governor modifies the stay-at-home order, you are all ready to get back to business. And it looks as though it will be business differently than we've done it in the past. So before I introduce the panelists that we have here today, I just want to give you a couple updates following up on that. Yesterday, the governor, at the governor's press conference, he went over these 4 stages of reopening, and we've posted these on our city's website, cityoffullerton.com. I encourage you to look at them. Right now, as the governor said yesterday, we are at stage 1, which is safety and preparedness. So we are all continuing to build out testing and contact tracing, personal protective equipment distribution, and hospital surge capacity. The state and the counties are focused on making essential workforce environments as safe as possible. And the state is also preparing sector by sector safety guidelines for an expanded workforce. Now, as we transition from stage 1 to stage 2 is where lower risk workplaces will be allowed to gradually reopen. And then it goes to stage 3 and stage 4. I encourage you to go to our website if you haven't seen these. I know there's a lot of confusion. I've been contacted by many of our businesses here in town as there seems to be confusion relative to the governor's reopening plan and the action that was taken yesterday at the Orange County Board of Supervisors. So let me be very clear. The action that the Board of Supervisors in Orange County took yesterday does not supersede the governor's order. They issued guidelines for when the order is modified. So I know there's talk about and confusion about businesses, retail businesses, all businesses just being able to open right now. That is not the case. So please understand, again, the County Board of Supervisors guidelines do not supersede the governor's orders. So if you are trying to figure out how to open your business tomorrow or Friday, please do not use the supervisor's actions as justification to open your business. Please be very careful. We don't want to have to enforce the governor's order. We have real emergencies to deal with here at the city, real services that need to be given. And my hope is that our business community here understands that we are still at a stay-at-home order and we need to abide by that. I also want to make sure that our business community understands that the City Council enhanced Orange County's face covering requirements. So if you are operating a retail facing business, Employees must wear face masks or face coverings, and patrons going into those businesses also need to wear face coverings. So with that, I also will say that we got a couple questions via e-comment ahead of this meeting that we want to get to. And then also, if you're on the Facebook live stream with us today, if you have business related questions that you feel aren't being answered, that you want us to try to answer, please put those in the comment section and we'll do our best to get to those. So with that, I want to introduce our panelists that we have here with us today. My good friend Teresa Harvey is with us. Teresa is the president and CEO of the North Orange County Chamber of Commerce, formerly the Fullerton Chamber of Commerce. She's also the vice president of the Cal State University Fullerton Auxiliary Services Corporation and is on the board of directors of the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives. She has over 20 years management and leadership experience, and Teresa develops relationships with business, government, and elected leaders, and of course is an advocate on a wide range of business and community issues. And I'm sure a lot, if not all of you on this call know Teresa. I also want to introduce someone who's a new friend to me, Mike Daniel. Mike's the regional director of the Orange County Inland Empire SBDC network. As a business owner and entrepreneur himself, Mike started his career as the owner of a Rocky Mountain chocolate factory. He grew his business to a total of 20 employees and is now an owner of a new venture called Sugar Daddy's Sweet Shop, which sounds really good about now. And then my other friend who's joined us today is Jesse Benron. Jesse is the Director of Workforce and Economic Development for the Orange County Business Council. Jesse develops and implements policy to advance workforce development, education, and economic development issues on behalf of Orange County Business Council and its members. Prior to joining the Orange County Business Council, Jesse worked for Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva on workforce and economic development initiatives within the state. So all of you, welcome. I know you've all muted yourselves during my opening there, and I would ask you to unmute when I call on you. I want you all to answer really the following question to get us started. What's your organization focusing on to assist business now through this economic crisis? And how are you preparing to work with them as they prepare to reopen? I want to start big picture, Orange County. Jesse, we'll start with you. What's your organization focused on right now?
Yeah, well, thank you, Madam Mayor, for having me on this call, and thank you to all the businesses who have joined and to the city and the city staff. So I think where we're at, Orange County Business Council, so obviously we kind of try to help the entire county. And we generally, our members are like medium to large, mainly large size employers. However, I wouldn't say there's much of a discrepancy, especially now, as far as the needs of business. I think it's pretty universal. So I think like you could say that kind of the larger businesses kind of can provide the staff for OCBC to do things that may be harder for smaller business to do and smaller chamber staffs to do. So I think we're really the liaison at this point between what's happening with all of our state legislators. So of course, Teresa and Madam Mayor, like you know your two state legislators very well and your Congress member very well. But I think we have the bandwidth to work with all of them. So all the state assembly members and all state senators and all the congressional members that kind of touch Orange County as far as what Orange County's needs are. I think also we're kind of a major convener, much like the chamber is locally, when it comes to scaling things out. So obviously when schools shut down, we were working with the Orange County Department of Ed with all our telecommunications partners about how are we providing kind of free services for the businesses and families in need. And again, that's where, again, just by having all of those contacts, having all those relationships, we could really scale issues. And then also just internally, I would say convener, because I would think a lot of the issues being faced in Fullerton are being faced with the Irvine Chamber, or being faced in South Orange County or Huntington Beach. And then so kind of what are they doing to try to weather this storm? What are they hearing from their businesses? And of course, we can kind of share ideas. I mean, just last week, we had a call where city staff was on with all the other economic development managers throughout Orange County. Again, and Mike was on that call. about what's happening, what are they doing, and how can we kind of implement things, because no one person has all the answers. And so by bringing kind of all of the ideas of the 3.2 million minds that reside in Orange County, we can kind of get solutions to kind of, again, get past this pandemic.
Thanks very much, Jesse. Mike, maybe we'll turn to you now, and you can talk about, as a regional partner, what is SBDC looking to do to help businesses?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mayor, for having me on. And so the Small Business Development Center, for those of you that don't know, we are a federally funded program from the SBA. We reside at Cal State Fullerton, so that is our home office. We also have 4 centers spread throughout Orange County. And so what we're helping people really do right now is understand the funding that's available to their business, whether it's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the Paycheck Protection Program. The state has just launched a state guarantee program. We're also helping a lot of local cities start their own loan program or grant program, dollars or community development block grant dollars. And so helping businesses apply for those loans. So we work with them one-on-one. We have about 100 consultants that work in our office. The great part about what we do is we're funded by the federal government, the state of California, Cal State Fullerton, and several others. So the assistance that we provide, it has already been paid for. So it doesn't cost our clients anything to use our service. It is free of charge to you. We are helping people every single day. Funding is obviously the biggest need for most businesses as they're trying to survive right now and just understand what the next step is. We're also helping our clients understand their leases and how to negotiate their leases with their landlords, and vice versa, how landlords can either try to acquire funding or how they can work with their tenants in being, making it just a common kind of, how can we all work through this to get to the next step and get to survival. Insurance is another piece. We're trying to help people understand if they have business income and business interruption insurance, that yes, they're probably going to be denied the claim initially, but there are several lawsuits, and all the congressionals throughout the state of California sent a letter to the insurance commissioner of California to work through to see, what is the next step. And I know that there's been some lawsuits already. I know French Laundry, which is a major restaurant conglomerate in Northern California, has filed a lawsuit, and several others will as well. And then the next step for us is really helping people with a recovery plan. What is it going to look like for our businesses, as we reopen our business? How does social distancing play a role in what we do? How do we get our supplies? How do we hire our employees back? And then at the same time, how do I work with my employees, whether it be pushing them through unemployment insurance and now pandemic unemployment assistance? So we help them with all those things one-on-one based on what their needs are.
And Mike, maybe you could just tell everybody, if they've never contacted you before, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, so our number is 800-616-7232. I'll give you my email address. You can email me directly. It's midaniel, DANIEL, @fullerton.edu. Or you can go to our website at ociesmallbusiness.org. Any way you get to us, we have live voices. We have 100 consultants, like I said, that are working every single day. We're open 6 days a week right now. We're here to help you through this. And every day at 3 o'clock, we do a webinar with the SBA disaster team. And so it is just going through the different types of funding that's available and working with people through that. But we get about 1,000 businesses on that call every day.
That's great. Thanks, Mike. I would ask I know our city clerk is on this call, as is our economic development deputy director. And if they would add to the comment section on our Facebook Live feed, Mike's contact information for businesses, I would appreciate that. Mike, will you just give your phone number and email again, please?
Sure. It's midaniel @fullerton.edu or 800-616-7232.
Great. Thanks so much, Mike.
Thank
And Teresa, why don't you talk about what the North Orange County Chamber, along with the other chambers in the area, is doing to advocate and support business?
Thank you, Jennifer. It's great to be here and to kind of share what we've been doing since the beginning. The Chamber quickly pivoted our activities, postponing events, and making sure that my staff and I were ready to respond to the business community. With our volunteer leadership team, we've been convening leaders from throughout the region to provide a response and to really promote those businesses that are open. We had a database that was robust from the beginning, and we've added a category called Open for Business, and we have a link on our website, nocchamber.com, that continues to be dynamic and provide information on those businesses, both restaurants and other services that are open in our community. If somebody sees a business that's missing, let the chamber know and we will add a business very quickly. One of the things this chamber does is to be the 411 line for the community. That continues to be in calls we respond to daily. And then also from our website, we have a robust site that has links that are useful to the business and community on resources. A lot of them reference back to resources that Mike has already referenced, but there continues to be a need to be able to provide this information to the community in multiple mediums. So we continue also to educate ourselves so we can be that conduit to the community. We have a newsletter that goes out twice a week to over 5,000 contacts each time it's distributed. We continue to be here for the community and to be able to share information. We have provided our own programs on provided by our community experts and those business leaders. We focused on investments and riding out the tide in this very difficult economic time. And we also provided a program on the Paycheck Protection Program. We've changed how we meet, but we continue to be that convener that connects the business community with one another. Our networking continues. It's just online now rather than in person. We continue to provide documentation for those exporters that are in our community who are trying to get their products out of the country and onto the ships, and more frequently now, I think, through FedEx. We continue to celebrate our heroes by promoting the good news that's happening in our community. And there's a lot of good things that are really happening. Restaurants stepping up to provide meals to our first responders, people saluting those at the hospital. And we continue to share those good news stories, which I think are so important to get out there these days. I think I've found that our community is amazingly resilient. We continue to be the champion for business, and we'll continue to provide guidance to the business community and the community at large as we all get back to work together. We'll continue to be here as we have been for over 125 years, being an advocate for businesses, providing resources, and encouraging our next generation of workers to be the best that they can be. So our chamber is going to be here for a long time, and we just want to continue to be able to serve the community best we can. Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Teresa. Really appreciate your work throughout many decades. Maybe, Jesse, we could go back to you. I mean, I have questions for all of you. And Jesse, I just want to know, what is Orange County Business Council doing at the county, state, and federal level as far as advocating for business? What are you advocating for business at those different levels right now?
Yeah, so I would say that the biggest things that need advocating for, well, I guess like, for one, to open up the economy, I would say essentially, and the governor talked about this, like kind of three things need to happen. One is like everyone needs enough PPE. That was kind of an issue. It has kind of, I mean, governments kind of are in bidding wars for it. Healthcare providers are in bidding wars for it. So when you open up the economy, how can a Fullerton business get access to it? Secondly, would obviously be about the ability to test. Mainly kind of this will probably fall upon the employer, so I'll explain a little bit later, but right, your ability to test employees, at least from a temperature check standpoint, if they aren't feeling well, you could send them home so it doesn't spread. And then thirdly, create contact tracers. So in essence, like if someone is sick, how can we kind of ensure that we identify other people they've been in contact with so then they could stay home, again, to kind of stop the contagion or stop the spread of the contagion. So I think those are three things that obviously we're pushing for, like kind of, can the state provide guidelines, especially since they're the ones who've kind of been in the process already, right? So government agencies have been open, so they've been able to manage their workforces. And so how can businesses kind of tap into what the government's learned, kind of their mistakes, their hits and misses? So one is we could do that. Secondly, I think we haven't done yet, but as soon to come up, is that we're probably going to start tapping our larger employers who have stayed open, so who are essential sectors. And again, what have they done? I think similar to maybe what Mike's doing with his businesses. So what have they done to stay open? Kind of what resources do they need? What resources do they have? what are operations in place, and I think we could share that with the greater public. But I think the biggest thing is going to be when people come back is going to be kind of which industries those are. So we're going to have negotiations with the governor's office, kind of. So I would say some industries are on the bubble between a phase 2 and a phase 3. And I'm sure most people would like to be as close to phase 2 as possible. So kind of how is he really going to start defining what is a phase 2 and what is a phase 3 industry when it comes to who's our business is going to be liable, and we want the state to be clear in their guidelines. And if you are operating with best practices in mind and the best of intent, like, are you liable if an employee gets sick? And of course, we don't want that to be the case. We don't want there to be kind of fear or angst from the employer to say, even though I can open up, I won't because I'm vulnerable to lawsuit. So that's a big component as well. And of course, also paying. Like, so if PPE is expensive, is it just going to be the cost of doing business now? Obviously, checking for people's temperatures or whether they're ill or sick. How does a business do that? And are they on the hook for paying for those things? Because then those are added costs. And of course, maybe some sort of relief. If you're operating at half capacity, you obviously are not going to be expected to have the same business as you did January 2020. So kind of what happens to those industries as well? Can we provide them more relief until we can get to, again, whatever it used to look like in January 2020? And that's what OCBC is doing.
So I appreciate that. I mean, from what I'm hearing from businesses, my biggest concerns are, number one, that businesses are, of course, businesses are closed, the harder it's going to be for them to open again. And I, just like at City Hall, we are preparing reopening plans so that we're ready to go. I know many businesses are doing the same thing. And there are examples that our businesses can use from the grocery industry, from other states and other chambers of commerce. And so I hope too that Orange County Business Council will make those best practices available to people so businesses can understand the kinds of plans they will need to create. And I know that Lucy Dunn, your CEO, is on the Orange County Board of Supervisors Task Force for Economic Recovery. So you might want to talk just a little bit about that. But you brought up what I think is the other biggest concern for business: liability protection for when they are open. And I know that there are talks at the state about that, but that is a huge issue. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And from the businesses that I've heard from, you're right on track with that. But can you just mention Lucy's involvement with the task force and what they are doing going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very similar to, again, try to identify practices amongst certain industries and kind of setting out those guidelines. So I mean that's essentially kind of what they're doing. And so they try to have calls as frequently as possible. So when the shelter in place gets lifted, or at least we go into kind of stage or phase 2, again, our ability to share that information from, I guess, a government agency side instead of just OCBC, which is kind of a private sector nonprofit. Although I will say, like, it does seem like the county will do no more than what the state wants to do. So I think obviously what the state guidelines are going to be very helpful in those discussions as well. So again, I think that's one thing to look at. And of course, we'll send those guidelines out in order for each city to assess, right? Because the city has the authority to have more stringent guidelines. They can't do lesser than, but they can be more strict. And so hopefully by having those in place, maybe we can convince cities that kind of their communities are fine, and they would only hold themselves accountable to the level that the state is, therefore allowing for more businesses to operate than less.
Right. Another issue, that this brings up is that some employees are making more right now on unemployment than they did at their jobs. So how do we get those people back into the workforce? And businesses that aren't able to open until stage 3 rather than stage 2, will their employees migrate to other businesses, leaving them with an employment gap? I think those are all issues that a regional powerhouse like Orange County Business Council needs to be active in. Teresa, yeah, and that brings up a question. Teresa, I want to go to you on what the Chamber's advocacy positions are right now relative to COVID. But someone asked on Facebook Live, someone stated that the governor stated that cities and counties may have regional variances and may have more strict or less strict standards. That is not what the governor said. The governor said that counties may have regional variances that are more strict than what he has outlined. That is why I stated at the beginning of this town hall that what Orange County did was create guidelines for when businesses are allowed to reopen under the governor's plan. Some of the comments they might have made during their meeting caused some confusion, but the governor's statement was that counties can have more strict reopening procedures than the state, not less strict. So Teresa, could you tell us about the Chamber's advocacy positions on behalf of business right now?
Yeah, and I think quite a few of ours echo what Jesse has said. I think that employer liability has got to be at everybody's top of mind right now. If an employee contracts COVID-19, is the business considered the first place of contact and therefore assumes the liability so far as work comp, as far as insurance liabilities. When it comes to opening a business in this North Orange County region, and particularly in Fullerton, we have a lot of businesses that are in food production. What are the additional costs going to be, and how are they going to be able to shoulder the costs of the additional health concerns and the PPE that are required? And these businesses are operating now because we need to keep the food supply open. So we continue to monitor things from a federal and a state level, and most importantly, probably the county and local governments. They are where our businesses are most directly impacted, and we are doing everything we can to make sure that people are able to open and operate, but in a healthy and safe environment that does not put them in a position of liability.
Good, thanks very much. And I want to mention too, we've talked a lot about personal protective equipment, PPE, and the Fullerton Rotary has been working on a project to create face shields, and they have created over 60,000 face shields like this. They have donated them to many hospitals and emergency personnel, and they now want to make available these face shields to businesses at their cost. So I'm gonna talk with Kelly Fritzall, our Deputy Director of Economic Development, about making sure that information's on our website about their project here locally, so that if you and your employees are in need of face shields like this, that you can get them at cost from the Rotary Club. Let's see. So maybe we can talk about what should business be doing today in order to prepare for reopening. Mike, I know you talked a lot about the funding and the counseling that you do. Can you give maybe 2 or 3 specific tasks that business can be involved in right now to get ready?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and I'll kind of echo the sentiments of the others, is a recovery plan. What does that look like for my business? And let me just give you some scenarios, right? So for a restaurant, if I have a typical capacity of 100 people and I have to go down to 50, what is that going to look like in my restaurant? Let's draw up a schematic of how we're going to socially distance, our tables from each other. How are we going to take care of our employees? And you hit it right on the head with, most of, in my businesses as well, my employees make between minimum wage and, $5 or $6 more than that. They're making up to $25 an hour on unemployment. So it's going to be very difficult to bring them back. So what does a new workforce look like? Am I going to have to train new people? And if you think about the people that are on unemployment, the people that aren't are, high school students, right? Early college students that didn't have a job. If that's the new workforce, how do we start to think through hiring new people? And so one resource that we haven't talked about much today is the Orange County Workforce Investment Board, right? Where they have on-the-job training, where they subsidize part of that training as you're bringing people back, and they can help you recruit, they can help you do a lot of things. So I think that's a great resource as well that we're partnering with and trying to figure out ways that people can find new workforce if they're not able to bring their people back in the short term. But, I would say that recovery plan, I mean, think about a yoga studio, right? I mean, what are they going to have to do? Do they have to clean it after every single time they have a session? Think about a dry cleaner, or, how are people going to feel comfortable taking their clothes to the dry cleaner? This affects everybody in so many ways. So I think it's, with us, you can sit down with us, we'll help you build what that recovery plan looks like around capital and your cash flow and your employees, and, really just trying to get to the sense of, what do I need to order now? Can I get inventory? Are my suppliers still even supplying things? Those are such big topics that that a lot of us don't have the answer to yet, but they need to start thinking through those right now.
Right. I'm glad you brought up workforce development, and that's in Jesse's bailiwick as well. I have been working with mayors across California to set up the California Mayors Coalition. And one of our 5 points that we're asking the governor to address is workforce development and economic development funding for local governments, because that way we can tailor workforce development programs for our workforce here and for our local business needs. So we're exactly on the same page on that. Jesse, Teresa, do you want to talk about either that workforce development piece, or what are 2 or 3 things that businesses should be doing today?
I think the unsurety of how long the enhanced unemployment benefits is going to be something we need to have addressed by the federal government. And I don't think there's been a time certain on how long those enhanced benefits are going to last. I know that the Chamber of Commerce has been working very closely with the community college district and moving down into the high school district with how to work with those who are in the training process right now at the community colleges and at Cal State Fullerton, and how they can really prepare themselves to be our next generation of workers. I think we also have to be very aware of the opportunities for enhanced training through the development board and some of the other things that are available to our community to make sure that we continue to retrain and upskill our employees so that they're ready to meet new challenges.
Yeah, I would add what the speaker said. I know Mike, obviously working with businesses directly, but I mean, again, even the governor's announcement of again phase 2, he said in weeks. So I think now is the time to really start thinking about those things instead of waiting for your business to be able to function and then start planning. So I mean, if you have weeks, I would say start planning now. I think on the workforce side, not to be repetitive, but I mean, we have to find ways to kind of maintain funding, at least particularly for the community colleges, if you want to talk about workforce. I think most people go back to school, but community colleges in particular, when there's a recession, sees a boost in attendance, right? So if there's not if the jobs aren't out there, now is the time to get upskilled. So when the jobs are there, I don't have to come back into a minimum wage job. I can, get $25 an hour, $30 an hour. And so it's kind of tragic that, again, recessions come and we cut the things that are probably needed for people to kind of be self-sustaining and be independent. That's one thing we have to work out, again, no CBC as far as advocacy goes, to try to preserve that funding so people can get the jobs they need, again, when we kind of get past the recession.
Okay, thanks very much. There was a great suggestion from one of the people with us on Facebook Live who said it would be helpful to have a checklist or questions to answer list for small businesses to consider when evaluating when and how to prepare to open. So his question is SBDC or any of you working on such a list? Or do you have a source to go to that small businesses can access to start the thought process about how to reopen safely?
Absolutely, and some of those laws are still being written, right? That the county has to come out with them. The health department's going to need to come out with what those laws look like. But we are launching a program that starts tomorrow with all the Irvine Company retailers, specific to what their needs are in building a recovery plan. And we'd love to do one specific to the Fullerton businesses as well. So I'll work with Kelly to get one started, you know, in the next couple of weeks so that we can work directly with you so that you can build a program specific to your businesses.
Great. Yeah, the guidelines that the County Board of Supervisors came up with are extremely generalized and might be difficult to apply to your specific business. So, Mike, what a great resource you are to be able to provide specific tailored plans to businesses. So that's a great resource. Let's see. Let's go to a couple of the e-comment questions that came in. One of the questions, and I'll prepare you all, it's difficult to answer. One of the questions that came in said, I'm the president and owner of the Nishan Banquet Center in the city of Fullerton. We have to pay lease and some utilities monthly, adding up to about $10,000. All our family life savings was invested in this business about a year ago. What's the future for our business to open? We have weddings and family special celebrations scheduled every weekend, and both us and the client need information directed toward the events industry so they can properly reschedule their events for the future. As I said, it's a really difficult question and a heart-wrenching, honestly, question to answer. But I would unfortunately have to direct you back to the governor's statements yesterday, his 4-stage opening. I think it's been interesting, and we can't tell you right now a definite date where you can start planning these events. I do think what I just want to say, I mean, maybe not as mayor if I can do that, I don't know, but what I hear from businesses is that they are finding new ways to do business. And my personal opinion is that the businesses that are able to flex and bob and weave in this kind of new environment are going to be the ones that thrive into the future. So, I mean, my encouragement, and I was a business owner for a long time myself. I had employees. I know the pressures there, but I would be thinking about how can you and your individual business be flexible and change with the changing times. Maybe Teresa, do you have good stories about people who have been able to do that? I mean, Pac-Man comes to mind in Fullerton. They're a great manufacturer in town of fiberglass models, and they're the ones who shifted to a volunteer force, to do the Rotary project that I mentioned. Are there others?
I think there are great examples of that all over the place. I know that there's opportunity through a number of the restaurants for you to not only purchase meals for yourself to go and for takeout, but also to provide that additional meal to the first responders. We've had some of our restaurants respond to the needs of the school district for meal service. I know that last night I participated in a virtual wine tasting that Vina Nostra hosted. She had over 50 on the remote wine tasting. Her business would never accommodate that number of participants. So there are businesses that are able to flex their models and are really being able to take things to higher levels. We're working on putting together the chamber's installation. And this is probably news to you, Jennifer, because I have you on the agenda for it. But it's going to be a Zoom event. It's going to be a virtual event. We're working with the staff right now to identify restaurants who might be able to provide takeout. We're able to bring in a keynote speaker that we'll be hoping to announce early next week that we would never have been able to bring in on our own. So I think as we just work as a community to be resilient and to think of new ways to work in this new normal, those businesses, there are more businesses opening now. I see a couple of businesses online that are shifting their models, and where they've been closed are going to be opening beginning May 1st. So I think as we just continue to monitor these businesses and watch what's being done and how they're really being creative in their modeling and how they're adapting to things. Businesses who require you now to wear face masks in to space yourselves out to wait in your car until your number's called. I've just been amazed at some of the resilience and the creativity of some of our local businesses.
Absolutely. Anything else either of you, Jesse or Mike, want to add to that answer?
Yeah, if I could add, I know funding and loans are not necessarily what anybody wants to hear. That's a difficult thing to think through in a business that probably has never needed a loan before. But, the economic injury disaster loan is the best loan on the market as far as, it's a 30-year loan at 3.75%, deferred for the first year, up to $2 million. We've seen a lot of people get that funding, and really to think through that as long-term funding. And just to kind of give you a for example, if you qualify for $100,000 of funding, it's about a $426 a month payment for 30 years. So it's affordable. And right now, your job, just like my job, is to help our businesses survive this, right? So whatever it takes, so a $426 a month payment is a really low payment deferred for the first year, so you don't start paying it back. That is the best loan on the market. There's a lot of misunderstanding about the Paycheck Protection Program. If you're closed and you're not operating, it is not a good program for you. The hope is that, and we're trying to push the SBA to do and figure out in Congress and Senate, is to figure out there's got to be a third program that gets people back into recovery. It's going to hopefully pay for a month of rent and utilities and payroll. But until that happens, the EIDL loan is the best loan. If you don't qualify for that, or if you've been turned down, the state has a new, they just launched, that's $50,000, and it's 4.75%, paid over 7 to 10 years. There's a lot of different funding options. I know that we're working with a partner that's going to launch, and it's not a huge amount of money, but they're going to bring 15 $5,000 grants to the County of Orange that Wells Fargo put money into, that we're helping them launch that here. And then, so there are other options for you. There's a lot of things, and I know that money gets oversubscribed in 10 minutes now. It seems like there's never enough money to go around, but it's survival. So you can do. So I know a lot of people don't want to look at a loan, but that might be the best way to get you through the next 6 months or 12 months.
Great. Thanks very much. I do appreciate that. Jesse?
Yeah, just one last thing you might want to look into. Again, I think the details have been kind of hazy, but again, the governor kind of announcing a program where restaurants are going to be feeding seniors. And so we just kind of stay up to date on that. Again, I know the business might not be a restaurant per se, but I assume that you're kind of producing food. So hopefully maybe you could maybe qualify for that program, and then that'll try to bring in some revenue to try to keep you open for those larger events when they become available in something like phase 3 or potentially phase 4.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 questions from hair salon owners, and I will just read those and then we can talk about them, also difficult answers. The first question is, I work in a beauty salon in a senior community in the city of Fullerton. I've always practiced cleanliness, wear gloves, and wear a face mask. Will all businesses be informed as to when they can open? It's difficult because I have a shop in a senior community and not sure how that will play out. Your thoughts? So I will start by saying that at this point, hair salons the governor is considering hair salons higher risk workplaces. And from what we can tell now, the information we have now is that he's considering them higher risk workplaces. And that would put hair salons, nail salons, barbershops in a stage 3 opening. That's really all the information we have now. And before any of you answer, another question came in from another hair salon, says, how does a hair salon change our model to thrive in this environment? I have a team of 90 people. They cannot provide their services online or by drive-by. We're unable to flex our model. Absolutely. Anecdotally, as a person who, lives from my hair appointment to my hair appointment, I understand you have problems flexing your model. And at this point, the information that we have is that hair salons are in stage 3 of the governor's plan to reopen. Mike, what specific support can you provide to those industries as well? They employ a lot of people. There are a lot of independent contractors there. There are high rents in these places.
No, and this is such a hard topic, because there really isn't an easy answer to give you other than, a little bit about the funding that I talked about, but then at the same time, taking advantage of the EDD at this moment, right? So if you're an independent contractor, you're not paying into the system as far as, your payroll taxes potentially on your own. You can apply as of yesterday for pandemic unemployment assistance, which gives you $600 a week. It's supposed to run through July 31st, unless you have extenuating circumstances. Then it goes to December 25th, I believe, or 26th of 2020. So that's at least something to get, some money into everybody's hands, especially as independent contractors. It's edd.ca.gov. You go to pandemic unemployment assistance and you could apply starting yesterday. And it's actually retroactive to when you last worked, or it could go all the way back to February 2nd. So that is one option for you. The other thing is, your landlords, continue to have that conversation with them. My landlord, in one of my locations, it's $10 a square foot. I get it. It's $9,000 for me. That's a difficult check to write, especially now that we're going into month 2. What do? What I would say is you have to take care of yourself first. Beyond anything else, take care of yourself and your employees and figure out what's best for you. And sometimes that's hard to separate from you and your business. So, if you can't make that payment, at least have the conversation with your landlord. If you want us to help you write a letter to them or have that conversation, prepare you for it. But unfortunately, there's no easy answer to this because we don't know when we're going to be able to go back and reopen.
Jesse, any advice?
Yeah, I would say that it's true that the when is uncertain, but I think those two businesses, the hair salon business, clear like kind of where they fall into. So there's not ambiguity on that end, but it is just unfortunate. It's just going to be longer than when phase 2 will happen. Obviously, everything Mike said, absolutely. I think some things that people have considered are maybe like gift certificates, where it's like somewhat at a discount. Again, if kind of cash flow again, it's always an issue. So again, kind of whatever the price of a typical haircut is, if you kind of gave a discount in the form of a gift certificate, and then they can kind of redeem it later for greater value. That's something that I know maybe on the really small business end, people are trying to do just to get cash in the door now. And of course, you'll kind of take a hit kind of later on, but by then, hopefully your business has stabilized. So maybe that's one tactic, because it's true. You really can't do haircuts virtually. I know I need one as well. I think we're all struggling on that front. So that's maybe one tactic that could be used. And obviously everything Mike said, just to take care of yourself and your employees, to put food on the table and a roof over your head.
Yeah, thanks very much. Teresa, anything to add to that?
I think only to kind of echo what Jesse was saying with the gift certificates, promoting your local businesses. If you can support your hair salon by purchasing your normal appointment now, that you can redeem later. And I've also seen some very industrious beauty supplies or hairdressers be able to actually deliver a do-it-yourself coloring kit that with instructions, which is a strange thing to think about. Soon we'll be getting do-it-yourself haircut kits, but I think that people are being creative in adapting to some of these changes. It doesn't necessarily fill the void of the revenue, but it's another way to just keep reminding yourself that you are important to those clients that you serve.
Yeah, thanks very much. We had another question from someone who said, I own a bar and grill and a martial arts school in Fullerton. What stage will these two businesses be in? I'm not sure we know at this point. Do we? Do any of you know? Jesse?
No, that's why the martial arts is one that has not been brought up. Although given the nature of it, it seems like a phase 3. The bar and grill is interesting as well, mainly because again, it's kind of a hybrid. Like people who are serving food, and I know you have plenty of them in downtown Fullerton, are open. Obviously, maybe definitely they're not getting enough business as they would like, but they technically are open. But it's the other aspects that aren't. So I think you're going to see something where a portion of that business is allowed, but the kind of the congregating part, the bar part, that we probably like generally think of is a phase 3. So as far as like being fully open, that's probably a phase 3 thing. But the grill part, the serving food part, again, you should be able to operate now.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I know that lots of our restaurants are open or are reopening for pickup and delivery. And I believe that, curbside service for retail businesses will come sooner rather than later. There is, the governor did talk about, we don't really know what this means yet, but the governor did talk about going through those different stages, stage 1 through 4, in different ways in different regions. When I and many of the other mayors of Orange County and business leaders look at the trends in Orange County, our caseload has been of COVID positive cases has been smaller than in other places. Our hospitalizations and ICU admissions have been smaller. Many of us feel like we are on the right trend, and so we should be able to move through these stages perhaps quicker than other regions in California. And believe me, we are all putting pressure on our leaders and advocating for that as it makes sense to keep it safe for everyone. Someone commented on Facebook that if you want to help business survive, become a political voice that acknowledges the human suffering resulting from the economic showdown is magnitudes of order greater than what's being caused by the virus itself. Not suggesting dropping masks or distancing, but get open. And I understand that sentiment. And we, of course, we feel for everyone individually affected and infected by COVID-19. And I know none of us take sickness and loss of life lightly. But I definitely understand the sentiments of this person's comment. And let me assure you, from the city's standpoint, we are constantly monitoring the health trends. We are constantly monitoring the information and the rules that are coming down from the state and from the county health agency. And we are fighting alongside business to make sure that safely and as quickly as possible, our business community gets back up and running so people can have jobs to go to, and businesses, as Mike has talked so much about, can survive well into the future. Do any of you have closing comments before we sign off today? I think I really appreciate all of you taking time to be with us. I'd like to do this on a regular basis to continue to answer business questions as we go through. So I hope you'll continue to be with me. Teresa, would you like to start with some closing comments?
Certainly. I just want everybody to know that your Chamber of Commerce is really here for you. We may be called ourselves North Orange County Chamber now, but our roots are in Fullerton. We care deeply about the Fullerton community, but we represent a broader coalition of businesses across the region. We are creating new ways to connect through online networking. We are creating new ways to serve our businesses, but we will continue to be a resource, a convener, and a disseminator of information. And so please check our website, nocchamber.com, for updates. If you have businesses that are open, I know we have hardware stores, and in downtown Fullerton, we have Ace Hardware. We have restaurants that are open. We have a variety of essential businesses that are doing their best to serve the community. But now more than ever, we need to be able to support those small businesses. And those of you who are working, remember to help your neighbor who might not be.
Yeah, thanks very much, Teresa. And thanks again for being with us. Jesse?
Yeah, I would just echo what Teresa says, and Orange County Business Council, we have kind of a newsletter as well. Share so much with Teresa and she shares so much with us. It's a lot of the same thing, but I would say rely on those because there is so much happening on an hourly basis that you generally have a business to operate somewhat, or you're planning on opening up. So it can be quite daunting to get all that. So I think working with the chamber or just tracking the chamber's newsletter or OCBC can just like sum it up. So every morning when you wake up, you kind of know what happened the next day and don't have to kind of spend half a day searching for what's relevant and what's not. And then one source is the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. So kind of GoBiz, BIZ might be a resource to check in with just in case. Those are just two things I would think just kind of again, minimize the impact and the time and all the tasks required to kind of stay up to date on everything that's going on out there.
Thanks, Jesse, for being with us. It was great to talk with you this morning. And Mike?
Yeah, I would just say, you know, we're here to help you. I'd love to help you one-on-one, sit down and really talk through what you need, you know, what survival looks like, and then what recovery is going to look like for your business. So if you need help in funding or just understanding that you applied for the EIDL loan or the PPP and you're just confused as to what happened, or if you received Paycheck Protection Program and how to actually spend it correctly, so there's a forgiveness component to it. You need help with your lease or, you know, setting up a recovery plan, send me an email today, midaniel@fullerton.edu, with one of our consultants today to start that process. So thank you, Mayor, for having us on.
That's great. Thanks, Mike, very much. And I also want to, direct your attention to the city's website again, cityofFullerton.com/COVID. Will give you all of the up-to-date information on the crisis, as well as we too have a newsletter and you can subscribe to it on our website. Councilman Ahmad Zara asked our city to set up our own economic recovery task force, and he and I are currently working on that. So we will keep you updated on the makeup of that ad hoc committee and the progress they're making. We would love to hear from the business community on the questions that you need answered through our task force, or suggestions that you have on ways that the city can make it easier for you to reopen and to thrive once you're open. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm sorry that the news isn't all good and that we don't have all the answers you need, but we want to keep this discussion going. And we welcome any feedback that you have. Let me tell you too, if you need to call City Hall, if you can't get your questions answered through our website, you can call us here at City Hall, and a member of the management staff is happy to talk with you. And that phone number is 714-738-6300. So with that, I want to say goodbye to you for now. Be safe and be well, and we will get through this together.